everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Optimizing Mother podcast. I'm so excited to be here today with Hinda Sosover. Hi, Hinda. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having me here.
Hinda is a wife, mother, educator, and shlucha in Toronto, Canada. She is a certified life coach and parenting coach. And using the lens of both Torah and Chassidus, Hinda works with parents one-on-one, and she really empowers them with support and tools to nourish the family, the relationships, and the home environment that really every mother envisions for herself. By focusing on the parent behind the parenting and the child behind the behavior, Hinda helps families bring out the good inside everybody. And Hinda really partners with parents to create the change that they want to. And isn't that something we all want? So I'd love to have a conversation with someone who really guides other mothers along this path. So welcome. We're really excited, Hinda.
Thank you.
I'm sure you have many different types of parents that you work with and many different things that come to you. But I'm curious, what's something that comes to you often? What is something that you're working on quite frequently with mothers, so we could kind of take a peek on that and gain insight from that?
Okay, so I really work with mothers with children of all different kinds of ages, starting from the little ones who are tantruming to the middle school kids who are having struggles getting their homework done, and then the teens with the teen stuff. Lately, I've been seeing a lot of mothers who are like late 30s, early 40s, who are Baruch Hashem mothers of large families. And they're all of a sudden getting this realization, you know what, I've been running, just kind of on autopilot for so many years. And now I'm starting to wonder, who are my kids? Who are all these people living in my house? And they all of a sudden want to get to know them better. And what are their kids' interests? And they're lost. And they want to know, how can I create a relationship at this point in the game with all the kids, the little ones and the older ones at this point? So that's something I'm seeing a lot of lately.
Okay. And so what does that look like? How do you help them connect?
So we work on building connection because we know connection between a parent and a child is key. It is the most important thing that all of the rest of the child's interactions and their mental health concerns or their daily living is all based on that core part of their essence, which is their relationship with their parents. And so we work on different ways, working with the different parents and their different relationships with their children to create that connection, because we know that the parent-child connection is the most powerful mental health intervention that there is, which means that when you have that strong connection between a parent and a child is most likely going to continue along with the values that their parent is imparting to them. So especially as frum mothers and as Lubavitchers, we know that we have a lot of strong values that we want our children to grow up with and to end up with and bring into their own adult lives. And that connection that we build with our children when they're younger is actually what takes them out into the world and helps them be successful in this same way, following the path that they grew up in.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
Just because I started off in the introduction about using the lens of Torah and Chassidus, do you have an example from Torah that proves your point that connection is what helps them overcome their challenges later in life?
For sure. Actually, a perfect example would be in last week's Parsha, or the Parshiyos leading up to last week, where we learn about all the Shvatim and the relationships they had with each other and their parents. And we can take Yosef HaTzadik, and we know that Yosef had a very special relationship with his father, Yaakov. And we know in last week's Parsha, we have the whole story with Potiphar's wife, right? And she wanted Yosef to sin with her. And we know the Rashi tells us over there that what happened to Yosef, in his mind, he had a vision of his father. And that's actually what kept him grounded and said, no, I'm actually not going to do this right now. And he ran away. And in addition to that, this week's Parsha, take Yosef, back to Yosef HaTzadik. We know he's called Yosef HaTzadik. Why HaTzadik? Because in this Mitzrayim, this most tumadik place that there was, Yosef remained the same tzaddik. And that is really because of his core upbringing, his values and his attachment to his father. And I do believe that a child who has that strong attachment in their early years, and I don't mean their early years only, I mean their childhood years, their years of living at home, will toe the line and stay with their family's values, unless there's something obviously outside that's huge in that child's life. So it's important. I feel like the connection piece is so huge. And just going back to the beginning, the question of how can parents connect with their kids, it's really connecting to their kids where they're at. And looking at your teenager and saying, what does my teenager need? How do we connect with our kids? All of a sudden, when we realize, oh, no, I have not been connecting, is to take a moment and say to yourself, what does my child need? And that's a different answer for each child, obviously. What is important to my kid? Get curious about your kid. What's important to them? Who are their friends? What are their interests? And really connect with them at their level on things that are important to them. Because when they see we have an interest in their lives and that their happiness is our happiness and their disappointments are our disappointments and we're all in it together, that creates that connection.
Hinda, it's so interesting that you're saying that, the thing people come to you about is about connection, because I would think people would call a parenting coach more like they're struggling with their kids, not listening, not wanting to go to bed, more like challenges in the home rather than just a generic, oh, I wish I could connect to my kids more. That sounds beautiful, but is that where parents are at?
Well, the truth is that it's really all connected, because if you look at the little kid who doesn't want to listen, and the child who doesn't want to go to sleep, and the normal tantrums, and the children that are fighting with each other, the normal sibling rivalry, it all really does boil down to connection. The mother who's trying to connect with her older teen, so she is connecting on she wants to connect with the teen on a teen level. And for a little child, when we connect with them, actually, they're going to want to cooperate more. So really, what I like to give an example is when it comes to exercise and health. We know we eat healthy and we exercise to keep our bodies healthy. So we shouldn't run into health challenges, right? And when we have that connection piece, we are kind of preloading that possibility for connection and cooperation with the children. It's really all one and the same. Yes.
Love that. So you mentioned teen. I want you to zero in on that for a second. How would you help a mother of a teenage daughter connect more with her teenager?
So the first thing we need to do is separate the mother from her kid, because a lot of times mothers want to parent their children in the way that they were parented or what they feel like they would have liked. For example, would you have liked more of this or more of that? Well, then I'm going to do that for my kid. But maybe your kid is actually a different person and they are growing up in a different home than you grew up in, and they might need something completely different. So number one is to separate your own wants, desires, needs, what you would have wished, what you could have had, take that to your therapist or something like that. But for your child, you want to kind of look at them and say, what does my kid need? What is my child really wanting? Once you know what your child needs, so then that's the time to connect to them at their level and to show interest in their desires and their wishes and their thoughts, noticing them a lot and showing them, I care about you. I care about what's interesting to you. Because when we know that our parent is interested in our lives, automatically we are feeling connected to them, because I am now an important person to my mother or to my father or whoever it is that's the adults in our lives. And really, what is it that my kid needs?
For teens specifically, what makes a teen feel like this more? Just because that was the question.
Well, it's a little bit difficult with teens, and I'm going to tell you why. Because teens kind of want you to show that you're interested in them. At the same time, they're really trying to build their own independence. So they don't want you to be overtly showing you that that you're showing them that you're interested in them. So it's kind of like a side door policy. You kind of got to bring up topics. When I was a kid, this happened to me, how do you feel about that? Or not even asking, how do you feel about that? Just kind of letting them know that you're kind of in touch with what's going on for them in their world. Do you know what I mean? I think it's great to look out for opportunities that you can connect with them on things that are interesting to them. If you have a teen that loves shopping, to try to go shopping with them. If a teen that likes to read, you can discuss books, or even just, you notice your kid is having a hard day. You can talk about the friendship issues you might have had as a kid. It's to find opportunities to connect with them about the topics that are interesting to them, not necessarily what's interesting to you.
So interesting. I once heard Rabbi Yaakov Horowitz say, like, his best advice for parents of teens is to sit on the couch or in a central room wherever the teenagers are and do nothing. Like, making like you're doing nothing. And then when they plop down on that couch, you're available to chat about whatever. He's like, it's not just about taking them out to eat or taking them out to this or that. I thought it was so profound. Like, we're so busy, like intentionally, like as if it's not intentional though, just like sitting on the couch and they will gravitate to you. I found it like, it seems so simple, but it's actually profound. I've seen it working with some of my kids. Just like I'm sitting on the couch, they just will naturally come and talk, So I'm curious again, like we spoke about connection and trying to connect to our children and our teens. I'm still curious again, like what values from Torah and Chassidus really guide you in helping your clients? Like when you help coach parents, like what do you, in terms of how they look at chinuch and how they look at a Yiddish child, like what is your like go-to perspective?
I think it really all boils down. Sorry. I think it all really boils down to the mindset that we have when we look at our children. When we take a moment to realize that our child is actually a precious part of Am Yisrael and that they have a chelek alika within them, and that each child is created with a portion of Hashem in him, which Hashem is perfect, and Hashem only makes perfect things. So if we look at our child from that mindset, that my child is really, really good. My child is good inside, and nothing my child can do can be wrong and could be bad. So when then we say, oh, well, what do you mean? My kid is hitting his sister. So clearly he's doing something not okay, right? So we have to look at it from the mindset of my child is good inside. My child has a chelek alika, and there must be something going on for my kid that my kid is actually, showing challenging behaviors. We know that kids do well if they can. Everybody wants to do well. A child who has a reading disability didn't choose to have it. They don't want it, right? And if a kid is hitting somebody or they're dysregulated and having a tantrum, they don't either want to be having a tantrum. There must be something going on for them, right? Our goal is never to harm our child and just whip them into shape and punish them and just assume that things are going to, if I parent them enough, they're going to be okay. But really the goal is to help our child and to teach them the right way to handle to get their needs met, I guess you can say. So when we look at a child as they're good on the inside and they're displaying challenging behaviors on the outside, we need to dig deeper. And we have to remember, it might feel like your child's giving you a hard time, but actually they're actually having a hard time. And it's, I love that quote. It's not, your child's not giving you a hard time, your child's having a hard time. Because when we look at it from that mindset, my child's good on the inside, they're having a hard time on the outside, then we can look at our child's behavior in a much more compassionate way. When we look at somebody as they're trying to bother us or trigger us, then we want to kind of get back at them. But when we look at another person as you're having a hard time, then we can be much more compassionate with them. And our whole reaction is going to be different. We're going to be looking at them in a way of, how can I help you? How can I give you the skills to get your needs met versus how can I just get this all to stop? Because I have a lot of mothers who come to me and say, oh no, I got this all wrong. I've always been doing it wrong. Is there any way that I will ever have a relationship with my kid? Or, different kinds of questions like that. It's the parenting guilt. And number one is, Hashem gives us the tools we need when we need to have them. So whatever happened in the past. And actually that was part of your child's journey. We like to think that we are one and the same with our kids, but they're actually separate people and they have their own journey in this world. And, it's very, I once heard this, I think I heard it from Rabbi Shimon Russell, that it says in the Zohar that before a neshama comes down into this world, the neshama is asked, do you want to be part of this family? Do you want to go to this set of parents? And the neshamas of the parents are also asked, will you accept this neshama, this child, into your family? And so the fact that these children ended up in our family is no mistake. Hashem doesn't do mistakes. This was a perfect shidduch for our family. And the fact that this child is in my family, it means I have the tools within me to understand this child and to help them grow into their full potential. And what's actually interesting is, if we take a moment to think that there's three partners in the creation of a child, the two parents and Hashem. And if we realize that not only is Hashem our partner in creation, but Hashem is actually our partner in raising them. So when we do our best as parents, we know we have the tools within us because these were the children given to us by Hashem. This is this special bond that we have, and we have the tools within us. And then when we feel like, oh no, I can't handle this anymore, we have to take a moment and remember, wait, there's another partner here, the best partner of all, Hashem. And we can rely on Hashem to help us with what we need next. And sometimes we feel like, I don't know what to do next. And that's where we bring Hashem in. We daven, we go to the aisle, we get the help of a mashpia, a coach, wherever we need to do to help with those extra tools. But we do have Hashem there with us. So we know we really have the best partnership there.
I would love if you could give an example. Kids behaving, and I tell myself, he's not giving a hard time, he's having a hard time, maybe he's missing some skills. Like, can you give me an example of what that would look like?
Okay. So, like I said, we need to take a moment and just look at our child. It's obviously, this is hard to do in the moment, but taking the time to understand, where is my kid coming from when they're having this tantrum or this complaint or these behaviors? Are they actually intentionally misbehaving, or are they really calling for help? Do they need something from me? What is going on here? And if we see behaviors, sometimes a kid could be having a hard day. They're hungry, they're tired, and nothing is really major that's triggering them. They need to eat supper. They need a good night's sleep, right? Or they had a hard day in school. Their friend was mean to them, something like that. And it's something that will pass. But sometimes things happen again and again every day in your home. And you start wondering, like, what is going on here? What can I do to help my child? I remember in my home, this was going on for a while, that I had one child who getting him in the shower every night was just so difficult. And this is going on for weeks and weeks. And this is not a dirty kid who doesn't want to shower. And eventually he took nice long showers. He was happy to get clean. But that process of getting in the shower was just so difficult. And as a mother, I was just busy and I wasn't taking the time to exactly what I'm telling you, to take the time to try to dig down deeper and see what is going on for my kid. So one day I'm like, I've had it. We've got to figure this out. And I sat my son down and I said to him, I don't understand. You're a clean kid. You like to take showers. You know that it's important to be clean. And what is it that every day when it's shower time, you just resist? And at the end, you're going to take the shower. So why is it that you push it off and you schlep it? And he, after a little bit of discussion, what came out that he didn't want to take a shower earlier because he didn't want to come down in pajamas and then he would feel like a baby, right? So this is such a silly example, but it shows us that there sometimes is something small that we just really need to get down to. And then the issue that we keep seeing again and again can easily be resolved.
So it's like, really have, what if you're not the type though? What if you're not that intuitive type to sit down and understand, or not every kid is so verbal to be able to express to you why they're resisting you. What if you can't figure out what's the behavior behind it? So
really, the truth is, it's true. A lot of parents are not in tune, or they don't even take the time to be in tune when they can be in tune. We really all do have the skills within us. We just have to take the time, and we're all busy. So it's important to show the child that, I understand something's going on for you, and to take the time to really connect with them and try to find out what's going on. Even kids who don't have the words, they'll be able to explain to you what's going on when they know that you really care about them. When they really, you share with them, I have a problem as a parent, or call it a challenge. I have a challenge that I need you to get your homework done every day. And I notice that you're not doing it. You know what I mean? What's going on for you? What's happening? You know what I mean? It really does. It does take time. It's the longer, shorter road, but it is what actually gets us to solve these issues.
Okay, Hinda, I actually have a burning question because I've been following your thread about something must be going on for the child and figuring it out and whatever. And there's something inside of me that's challenging and resisting it. And it's a very simple thing. We know that a kid has a Yetzer Hara. Like, not always is there like a reason for them not to want to listen to mother, other than the fact that Hashem made it that it's beautiful. They have an neshama that wants to do the right thing. But you can't deny that there's also a Yetzer Hara that's telling them don't listen, regardless of what that looks like. There is this Yetzer Hara inside of them. So how does that like fit in with like, everything you're saying?
Okay, so what you're saying is 100% true, and especially these weeks in Tanya, now that we started the Tanya again, we're going back and forth with this Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Tov, the Nefesh Elokis, Nefesh Bahamas, and yes, definitely, that's very, very real. And the truth is that if you even look in a few parshiyos ago when we had the birth of Yaakov and Esav, if you take Esav, we know that Rivka was pregnant with Esav, and she went to go find out what's going on here, and she was told, this kid is going to grow up to be a Rasha. Hold on a second. This kid wasn't even born yet. He's going to be a Rasha. We're kind of like, not even giving him free choice in how he's going to grow up. And the Rebbe actually talks about that. And the Rebbe says that Esav actually had the potential to be even greater than Yaakov. That's what the Rebbe says. And and that's actually like so huge as a lesson for us as parents, because when we see a child, the question is on the Yetzer Hara. So sometimes we do see a midah in our child that we're like, oh boy, this is really problematic. A child is extremely stubborn. A child, and there are some that are like that. A child that's extremely bossy. We can go on and on and on. But really, these are midas that we can reframe them and look at them from a different perspective and help our child. So how can we do this? We realize that a child that's acting up has the greatest potential, right? He can take that midah and use it in such a positive way. So how do we do this? Number one is realize that whatever's going on, we need to take some time to think about it. I need to sit down with my spouse and say, I'm noticing this child is extremely stubborn. How can we channel it in a way where he can use it in a positive way? How can we use this for a child to be able to grow up using this stubbornness in a good way? I remember I was once teaching this kid, and she was very, very bossy. And she had to, recess time, she was in charge of all the games. And during class, she had to answer all the answers. And it was a little bit much that really the girls in the class did not like her. And I remember at the time, I was speaking with the principal, and I said, look, I'm really concerned about this kid, and how's she going to grow up? What's going to be with her? And she told me at the time this exact lesson. She said, you know what? A child has a midah, and that midah can be used in a negative way, and it can be used in a positive way. And our job as parents and as mechanchim is to help our child channel that in a very positive way, because they can take that and they can fly with it. They can really grow so, so much. And that particular child that I'm talking about today, she's a grown woman. She runs a very successful business, and she learned how to delegate that bossiness and runs a beautiful, beautiful organization, and her employees love her because she learned how to work with it. And obviously she had her parents guiding her along the way and her different teachers as she was growing up. But what I'm saying is any midah, if we take the time to think through it, we can try to channel it in a way that will help our child. Okay, so just to answer your original question, which was, we do have a Yetzer Hara, and our child does have a Yetzer Hara, and we know that sometimes it's not a missing skill. Sometimes it's just the Yetzer Hara acting up. And yes, that does happen. First, we're going to rule out, is the child lacking something? Is there something they need? Is there a way I can help them? And then we say, yes, their Yetzer Hara is acting up, and he's actually doing his job. But our job is to create an environment where the Yetzer Hara does not have room to act up. We create the environment where this child can take those midas and use them to grow himself, to be his best self, to create the potential for him to, move right into that. And that's like taking that, child who needs lots of attention and giving them positions where they can be in charge. Taking a child who is creatively writing on your walls with markers, a little child, giving them a place where they could use their talents. It's not so simple actually to figure out what is it that my child, how can I channel my child's midas in a positive way? And sometimes, this is where I like to use the example of the Hayam Yam, where the Rebbe says, you should spend some time every day thinking about the chinuch of your children, yes, you might need to sit down with your child, your husband, or, your mashpia, a coach, a teacher, someone, and, wherever you're noticing these things going on, and say, this is a strong midah. How can we channel it for the child's best potential?
I love it. It's like, not only do we have to overcome our own Yetzer Haras, we have to outsmart our children's Yetzer Hara in order to raise them. We have to outsmart our kids' Yetzer Haras and help them figure out how to navigate it. So much fun.
Look, it's not, I was just going to say, it's not easy, but being that these are our children, we know we have it in us. We could do it. We for sure can.
Right. I also want to question you on something you said before about when a kid is not behaving, find out what their need is. Where does that come from in Torah to find each kid's need, as opposed to just I'm the parent, I lay down the law, I parent you the way I think I should parent you, goodbye. Where does this let me figure out each kid need come from?
Yeah, I mean, that's really chanech lenar al pi darka. We have to educate each child according to what their needs are. The Rebbe speaks a lot about this, but even on a very basic level, the fact that our 3-year-old is playing Legos on the floor and we sit down to play with them. No, we're not actually very interested in playing Legos. I'm whatever age I am. I'm 20, I'm 30, I'm 40. I'm past the Lego stage, right? Or, our 7-year-old wants us to read 17 books to them by bedtime, and we're getting kind of tired of it, but this is what's fun for them. I don't know that we have to do 17, but I'm just saying, we do see what is it that my kid really wants now, and I'm going to connect to them with what they're at. If I have a teenager that wants to get a certain kind of jacket for school or coat or school bag or whatever it might be, I might go with them to 5 stores to get the one that they want, even though that's not fun for me, right? But it's what they need, and I'm showing them what's important to you is important to me.
It's so interesting because you gave the example of Yosef before, and people are going to listen to this podcast, not necessarily will it be Parshas Vayeshev or Miketz. It's relevant every time of the year. But Yosef is actually the midah of Yesod, which means bonding. Like Chassidus talks about, in order for there to be hashpah from the 6 midas, from the mashpia to the mekabel. What's the last of the 6 midas before the makabel? It's Yesod, it's bonding. There has to be this connection from the mashpia to the makabel, from the rav to the talmid, from the parent to the child. That Yesod, that bonding, is what allows me to transmit my values. So,
that's really beautiful. That's really beautiful, actually. So it's interesting. I was speaking with a teacher the other day, discussing a challenging child that he had in the classroom and how he can work with him. And, through much discussion, we realized, yes, what this kid really needs before he's going to be open and available to learn what the Rebbe is actually teaching. We discussed how he can connect with the child before the lessons begin, or even throughout the lessons where he can. As they're walking into class, what's important to the child? Does he have a new school bag? Can you comment on it? Did he come with sharpened pencils or a brand new package of markers? Whatever it is, when the child sees, my Rebbe noticed me, my Rebbe notices what's important to me, now we've connected. Now, once we have that bond, like you just said, that bond, now the child is open and available to learn what the Rebbe has to share.
You know what? It's true. If a kid's coming in the morning and you connect to them, they might be more receptive to learning or whatever. But there are some times when your kid is not really able to learn from you. There's no one to talk to sometimes. They're screaming, they're tantruming. How would you go about connecting and teaching in those moments?
So the truth is that you're 100% correct. When a child is really dysregulated, it is not the time to teach. When I remember in all my years of teaching, when a kid would come into the classroom and you could see that they had a rough morning, you can be sure that child is not going to be learning. Why is that? Because at the time that a child's dysregulated, the part of the brain, that's the thinking brain, and the part of the brain that is ready to learn, to problem solve, to see things from another person's perspective, it's offline. It's not available because they're so dysregulated. I kind of look at it that like a grogger or a toy that makes so much noise. Those plastic hands. There's like 3 hands rubber band together and you shake them and it makes so much noise. I like to use that example. When a child is dysregulated, it's like somebody's taking this noisy hand or whatever noisy thing and just banging it in their ears. So when a parent tries to give a lecture at that time or correct a child, they're not hearing a thing you're saying, not a thing. And the goal at that time is to make a child actually feel heard and understood. And really, it's acknowledging what it is that they wanted or wish, what they wish or want in the moment. What feelings are going on for them? Because we know that feelings are the bridge between a problem and a solution. And when we empathize with a child about whatever's going on for them in the moment, oh, you had such a rough morning, I can tell. Something must have happened on the bus or whatever it is. Once they know that we're with them in their moment, then they'll calm down and they'll be able to hear what you say. Sometimes it's really not right after, and it's later in the same day where you have to bring up that teaching moment. Because when we believe what they perceive, when we believe what's going on for them, because obviously they wouldn't be having that tantrum if it wasn't important to them, whatever they're tantruming about or whatever's really dysregulating them, then they wouldn't act up. And really they're acting up or whatever, they're tantruming or they're crying or whatever's going on for them because something very big is going on for them. And just when we take that moment to empathize with them about what they wanted or whatever they're crying about, then they'll be able to calm down and maybe that teaching moment can come in. I mean, I love to give this example. A lot of times kids are fighting over a toy. Little boys are fighting over a car or a ball or whatever it is. And the kid will keep saying, but I got it first, but I got it first. It's my turn because I had it first. They just want you to acknowledge that they had it first. And then once you say, you know what, you were the one who had the ball first, then sometimes that kid, now that he's calmed down enough, and the fact that he was supposed to have the ball first, he might be willing to give the ball to another kid, but he needs you to address that point. Actually, in Pirkei Avos, it says, Al taratza es chaverecha b'shas kasei. Don't speak to your friend in his time of anger, right? This is a perfect example. We don't speak to our child, yes, we will speak to our child with empathy, but we're not going to try to teach them anything or give them a lecture or whatever it is. Whatever situation we need to happen differently, another way for them to speak to get their needs met. Take that, maybe the teen who maybe didn't speak so respectfully, right? We need to wait till another time. First, we empathize with them. We understand them, where they're coming from, what's going on for them. At a later time, when things are calm, you can say, you know what, I understand you were extremely frustrated. What's another way you can say that? Something like that.
1 second. Why should I not stop them and be like, absolutely not, try again? That was way too chutzpahdik. I mean, what, they're being chutzpahdik.
100%. You know what? Really, it's you can say, I'm not able to listen to this right now because that's not a nice way of speaking. I'm going to take some time out for myself. When you're ready to speak respectfully, come to me. For sure. No, definitely we don't tolerate it. But I'm saying the fact that I want to have a discussion with my child about a different way to get this very need met. You're upset with how I did this as a parent. You would like to discuss it with me. I'm happy to discuss it. There's ways to do this, right? As for mothers, the Torah definitely has kavod yisavich chavetz. Got to honor your parents. You got to speak respectfully. These are all real things, but there's a time and a place for everything. And at that moment, when somebody's in their anger moment, this is not the time any lessons are going to be taught. For sure, in the moment, you can say as a parent, I'm going to step out. I'm not available right now to listen to this kind of talking. Do you know what I mean?
Are there any ways we could do to accelerate their brains coming back on, online? You mentioned going offline. How could we get their mayach shalat al leiv back on, and not just leiv shalat al mayach?
It's really just empathizing with them in the moment. Really validating their position and what's going on for them, what they wanted, what they
How does that not make it worse? How does emphasizing the feeling and the emotion not make it worse? We're trying to get them back into their brain, their thinking part. How does validating the emotion make it better?
Because they're not going to be ready to. The way that we work is that our brains, the part of the brains, which is the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that is the thinking brain, the problem-solving brain, the learning brain, that when we are dysregulated, it's offline. It's not there. as adults, we get maybe a little bit better at controlling ourselves, but for children, for sure, it's just not available. And the way to open it up to become available is by addressing the feelings. And when I say to my child, I know you really are sad because you wanted your friend to come over. So I'm naming the feeling. Naming is taming. It actually calms it down. So name it to tame it, right?
And then how do you go from there to but basically what I'm grappling with in my mind right now, I hope it's okay. It's like we teach this concept of mayach shalit al halev. So as adults, right, we might have all these feelings of our nefesh Bahamas, but we want to generate it and use like the mayach of our nefesh kiss, to control our emotions and how we speak. So how do we bring that down for a child? Like, okay, you named it to tame it, and then how do you transition them back into nefesh kiss mode, back into online mode, back into, you mentioned before saying speeches later, but like even in the moment, how do you help the kid, do this thing called mayach shalit al halev? Or is the answer the same? Not in the moment. Later on, you read them a story or talk to them about how to do it better next time.
Well, I'll tell you what. The teaching is not in the moment. It's like, what's the expression? You don't teach a drowning child how to swim, right? In the moment, nothing's going to happen. Now, certain children actually recuperate really quickly from their moments of dysregulation, and they're open and available for that mayach shalit al halev. Teach them how to go about it next time. But most of us are not. We need some time to cool down. And that's actually the hard part as a parent, is to remember later to come back and address the issue that you needed to address. I thought, to me, that's the most challenging part of it, right? But yeah, and in that later discussion, you'll discuss, when this situation arises, how could you use your mayach shalit al halev? How could you regulate yourself in a way that you're going to actually respond in a way that you want to in the moment, instead of, not speaking respectfully, instead of hitting your brother, instead of, whatever the situation might have been.
Almost like a practice run, like what do they call it? Role playing? Like, how could you do this better next time?
Yeah. And I'll tell you the truth that as parents, I always remind my parents, I'm like, you know what? You have to remember to go back to it, because we forget the situation's over and we forget about it. The teaching moment is not in the moment. It's in a calm time, right? And that's the challenge, to remember to come back to it.
Right. I happen to agree with you that it's the most important, because like I have a hard time with just validating the feeling itself is going to make it better. It's not. It might feel good in the moment to the nefesh Bahamas, but that's not the nefesh kiss part. Like, I feel like we owe it to our children and to ourselves to actually be mechanech them. It's not enough. I agree with you so much. It's not enough to like, oh, you got a boo-boo. Like, it's so important. Like, probably the main work is the later. The main work is when the child is receptive to really bring with them. Like, how do we act when we're angry, or how do we repair when we hurt somebody? Like, that was actually the reason for my book, Oops, I'm Sorry. Like, what do you do if you hurt somebody? Saying sorry, help to fix it, find a way to make sure it won't happen again. Like, the chinuch part, you're right. It's so easy to forget, but parenting is not really whack-a-mole, like deal with the issue, bam, 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 as it comes. It really is this avodah of like sitting and talking things through with our children.
Yeah. And it's hard because, once again, it's that long, short road. Like, sometimes it's just like, I don't have patience now to sit down for 15 minutes and discuss what already blew over an hour ago. You know what I mean? I don't want to take the time. I don't want to bring it up again. But actually, our goal as parents is to help our child develop the skills they need, and to help them, we're trying to create this environment where they're going to grow as best as they can, right? We want to send them into adulthood with all the skills they need. And it's in those quiet, calm moments that we can discuss how they can develop those skills in the best way for them and their challenges.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. Any last thing you want to tell our listeners before we wrap up?
I think just like, we spoke about earlier about, doing things in advance so we can get better results. The more we connect with our children, the more we take the time to meet them where they're at, the more we take time to be curious about their lives, to notice what's important to them, then the more likely we're going to get the compliance that we need, the willingness to cooperate, and just really having that mindset that our children are really good inside, that they really are special neshamas that Hashem has given to us, and they're really meant for us as parents. It's no mistake. And when we keep that in mind, we could really parent from a much more conscious place, and we'll respond to them more compassionately and with the answers that we want to, the responses that we want to respond with, instead of reacting when things go crazy, because they do. And when we keep that in mind, and obviously it's hard in the moment when a child is, doing whatever they're doing, and to remember, oh, you're such a special neshama, right? No, it's hard for us to remember that. But remember, there's something going on for them, or they wouldn't be doing it. Something's important to them that they're trying to react to. How can I help them in the best way possible? And I just want to continue wishing parents hatzlacha, because it's a hard job, but it's the most rewarding. And when you see your children turn into adults that are successful and they've got beautiful midas, then you know you've done something right. And everybody has it. So hatzlacha.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please follow us on the Optimizing Mother podcast, subscribe to our podcast, and share it with friends. Thank you, Hinda, for joining us.